This week's Parsha is, of course, Parshas Vayeshev. The next couple of Parshas, Parshas Vayeshev, Miketz, Vayigash, and Parshas Vayechi, all center around Yosef. Yosef, of course, is the son of Yaakov's favorite wife, Rachel, the oldest son, the son which the Torah tells us Yosef particularly loved. Yosef was the beloved of Yaakov's sons. And of course, immediately the Torah begins with telling us that there was sibling rivalry between Yosef and his brothers. The sibling rivalry is irritated. It is only made worse by Yosef's insistence on telling his brothers about his dreams. Yosef dreams that he's going to be king. Yosef dreams that he's going to be the ruler. Yosef dreams that his brothers and even his mother and father are going to be bowing down to him. And Yosef tells these dreams to his brothers. This does not bode well with the brothers. The brothers hate Yosef, in the words of the Pasuk. They hate him even more after he tells them his dreams. And Hamatzav lo tov, the situation between the brothers is not good. Okay. The story, of course, you all know. The brothers go off, the brothers, that is all of them besides for Yosef, the brothers go off to tend their father's flock, to tend the father's sheep in a city called Shechem. Yaakov, the father, sends Yosef, his son, to go and check on his brothers in Shechem to see how they're doing. He actually sends him to go and check on the brothers and to check on the flock. And Yosef arrives. Yosef arrives in Shechem. Yosef arrives in the city the Torah says is called Doison. Be it as it may, Yosef arrives to check on his brothers. And as soon as he arrives, the brothers decide to kill him. In the end, the brothers talk each other out of this. They change their minds. They don't kill Yosef. Instead, they put him in a pit. And at least according to Rashi, the brothers themselves are the ones who end up selling him into slavery. They sell him into slavery not before removing from him that ksonis pasim, that colored coat that Yaakov, the father, had made for Yosef as a sign of his everlasting love and his preferred love for Yosef over the others. They remove this coat, they dip it in blood that they extract from a goat that they slaughter, and they return the coat to Yaakov with blood stains on it. And they tell Yaakov, Toroif Toiraf Yosef. Yosef has been torn by a wild animal. They present to him this tunic, this coat, dipped in blood. Yaakov assumes Yosef is dead. Vayisabel al beno yomim rabim, and he mourns for his son for many, many years. In fact, it would be 22 years until Yaakov and Yosef would be reunited. Okay, the brothers, of course, all know that Yosef is very much not dead, that Yosef, at least that they were the ones who killed him, that Yosef was sold into slavery by their own hands, and they make a pact among themselves never to reveal this to Yaakov, and so Yaakov, the father, is mourning and pining for his favorite son Yosef, the one he favored over the other brothers. This is, at least to a degree, this is part of some parts of the story. The story is very famous. You all heard it many times. And every time we study it, the story is more and more difficult to understand. First of all, bottom line, how can brothers want, desire, plot, and explicitly state that they're going to kill their own brother? I mean, sibling rivalry has been known to happen. Things get out of hand. Brothers don't like brothers. All right, Yaakov, the Medrash says, Yaakov should not have showed favoritism towards his son Yosef, be it as it may. All right, the jealousy among the brothers The disharmony between them goes back to the disharmony between their mothers. Rachel and Leah themselves didn't get along. Once again, okay, all things that we know. But still, it seems difficult to fathom. It seems difficult to wrap our heads around this. How can we understand brothers explicitly plotting, to kill, to murder in cold blood their own brother? What did Yosef already do that was so terrible? He told them about his dreams. No, he told them about his dreams. Yosef had dreams that he was going to be the king and the ruler. The brothers didn't like it. He was getting on their nerves. No beseder. For this, you have to go and plot and plan to kill your brother. I mean, lahavdil, even goyim don't act that way. That, of course, is the greatest question of them all. All right, thank God, Baruch Hashem, the brothers talk each other out of this. Eventually they decide, you know what? No, we're not going to kill him. What are we going to do? L'chuvanim karenu, we're going to sell him. And once again, the question, this is mind-boggling stuff. Brothers are going to sell their own brother into slavery. Again, you don't get along with him. You don't like that he's telling you his dreams. You know, whatever happened to sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never harm me. I mean, you don't like the fact that he's telling you his dreams. So block your ears. Send him to study some social skills, social therapy. I mean, what? For that you have to, we're not going to kill him, we're going to sell him into slavery. Seems incredibly difficult to understand the way the brothers are dealing with Yosef, their attitude toward him. Seems very, very difficult to understand. Now let's ask another question. Yaakov himself is unaware of the sibling rivalry going on between his children. That's not possible to assume such a thing. How can Yaakov not be aware that the brothers don't get along, that the brothers hate each other? Yaakov is not aware that the brothers can take matters into their own hand and very difficult to assume, to accept that Yaakov didn't realize who his sons were. In fact, just in last week's Parsha, Yaakov watches Shimon and Levi wipe out the whole city of Shechem. So Yaakov must have had some idea what was going on between the brothers, and Yaakov must have had some idea that the brothers didn't get along. Of course. So why does Yaakov send Yosef to his brothers alone, defenseless, to go and check on his brothers and to go and check on the sheep, whatever that means, to see how they're faring? Doesn't Yaakov understand that he's asking for trouble? If you want to know how the brothers are doing, send someone else. Let's read together a couple of psukim. If you have a chumash in front of you, Perek Lamed Zayin, Pasuk Yud Beis, the beginning of the second Aliyah, Sheni. Vayelchu Echov liros son Aviyim b'Shechem. The Pasuk says the brothers of Yosef went to tend to their father's flock, to tend to their father's sheep in Shechem. Pasuk Yud Gimel, Val Yomer Yisrael Yosef, and Yisrael, who is another name for Yaakov, says to Yosef, Halo yachecha royim b'Shechem. Your brothers are tending the sheep in Shechem. L'chavesh l'chacha alayim. I'm going to send you to your brothers. And Yosef says, Hineni, here I am, ready to go. And Yaakov says to Yosef, go and check upon the welfare of your brothers, the welfare of the sheep. Come back and report to me. And he sends him from the valley of Hebron, and he comes to Shechem, and there the whole story unfolds. What is Yaakov doing? Poking the bear? Asking for trouble? Why? Why did he send Yosef after all that's been going on with the dreams and the back and forth? And Yaakov himself, the Torah says, scolded Yosef for doing this, for telling his dreams. So why is Yaakov sending Yosef to the brothers to go and check on them? It seems like a bad idea. And in fact, it doesn't end well. It doesn't end well at all. the brothers are going to kill him, if not for the fact that they were talked out of it. Someone is asking if the story happened before the incident with Dinah and Shechem in last week's Parsha. To the best of my knowledge, it happens after the story of Dinah in Shechem. I may be wrong, but to the best of my knowledge, it happens after. Okay, so there is a Rashi here that I want to study with you today. At first glance, when you read the Rashi, it seems like Rashi is sort of harping on a nuance or harping on a detail which needs to be explained, but in the larger picture is insignificant or less significant. But as you read the Rashi and you think actually clearly and carefully about what Rashi is saying, I believe a whole new depth to the story is pushed to the surface. So again, if you have a Chumash in front of you, I'm in the beginning of Sheni, Perek Lamed Zayin, Pasuk Yudalad, the third Pasuk in the Aliyah. This is the Pasuk, which describes how Yaakov sends Yosef to the brothers. The end of the Pasuk reads, quote, Vayishlochehu me'emek Chevron, Yaakov sends Yosef from the depths of Chevron, and Yosef comes to Shechem to check on the brothers. Here's Rashi. On the words, me'emek Chevron, from the depths, from the valley of Chevron. What's bothering Rashi? Says Rashi, me'emek Chevron, from the valley of Chevron, v'haloi Chevron bahor. Rashi says, what's the pasuk mean from the valley of Chevron? Chevron is not a valley. Chevron is on the top of the mountain. How do we know? Shnebra, because the pasuk will say later when it comes to the Meraglim, when it comes to the spies sent by Moshe Rabbeinu to Eretz Yisrael, it says, Vayalu b'Negev, they went up in the south, Vayovayad Chevron, and they came all the way to Chevron. So that means Chevron is not in a valley, Chevron is on the hill. So why is the pasuk saying that Yaakov sent Yosef from the valley of Chevron? Chevron is not a valley. Answers Rashi, Elo, the Torah says Rashi is not referring to a physical valley. The Torah is referring to Elo me'etza amuka, from the deep counsel, shel oisei tzadik hakover b'Chevron, of that tzaddik who's buried in Chevron. Who's the tzaddik buried in Chevron? Avraham Avinu. Lakayim Hashenemar la'Avram, to fulfill what it says concerning Avram, what Hashem said to Avram, Bein Absarim, by the covenant between the pieces, where Hashem said to Avram, Ki ger yiyeh zaracha, your descendants will be strangers in a foreign land. Now, when you read the Rashi at first, you can read it 3 times. It's difficult to understand what Rashi is even saying. What is Rashi talking about here? It turns out Rashi is explaining to us the meaning of the word of the pasuk me'emek, from the depths. What's the that Yaakov sent Yosef from the depths of Chevron? What's the depths of Chevron? Chevron is not in any place deep. Chevron is on top of a mountain. Explains Rashi, when we say the valley, when we say the depths of Chevron, we're not talking about a physically low place. We're not talking about physical depth. We're talking about conceptual depth. There's something deep. There's something profound going on here that has to do with the tzaddik who's buried in Chevron, namely Avraham Avinu. And that's why the Torah says, from the depths of Chevron, meaning from the conceptual depth of something that's associated with Avraham Avinu who's buried in Chevron. All right? A completely new meaning to the pasuk. What does this have to do with Avraham Avinu who's buried in Chevron? Says Rashi, it turns out that Hashem and Avram had a conversation. The conversation took place between the pieces. This is known as the Bris Bein Absarim. And over there, by the covenant between the pieces, Hashem told Avram, your descendants are going to be strangers in a foreign land. And that is the reason why the Torah says that Yaakov sent Yosef from the depths of Chevron. End of Rashi. Now Rashi doesn't at all even explain what he means. What does Yaakov sending Yosef to the brothers have to do with Hashem telling Avram, at the covenant between the pieces, that your descendants are going to be strangers in a foreign land? Rashi doesn't explain. But if you think about it for just a minute, a very clear picture emerges here. What happened? Hashem had already told Avraham Avinu that the Jewish people are going to be strangers in a foreign land. They're going to be they're going to be subjugated. They're going to be enslaved. Hashem told Avraham that the Jewish people are going to be enslaved. Where was this prophecy fulfilled? In Mitzrayim, in Egypt, where the Jews were enslaved for 210 years. How did the Jews end up in Egypt? What made the Jews even get there in the first place? Who forced the Jews down to Egypt? Why did the Jews end up there? The answer is that the Jews end up in Egypt later on, many years later, in 22 years from now. The whole family of Yaakov and his children and his grandchildren, and according to some opinions, even his daughters-in-law, they all go down to Mitzrayim. Why do they go down to Mitzrayim? Because Yosef was in Mitzrayim. Remember that later on, there's going to be a hunger. There's going to be a terrible drought. In the whole world, there's going to be a hunger. And the only place where there's going to be food is in Mitzrayim. Yosef will later on be discovered by his brothers in Mitzrayim in Egypt. And Yosef will send for his family. And his whole family, Yaakov and the brothers and the grandchildren and the Einaklach, everybody's going to go down to Mitzrayim, where over there in Mitzrayim, Yosef will provide for them food and everything that they need. And that's how the Jewish people end up in Mitzrayim. Actually, they end up in Mitzrayim because of Yosef. Now, how does Yosef end up in Mitzrayim? Well, the answer is that his brothers sold him into slavery. He gets sold once and twice and three times until, because his brothers sell him into slavery, Yosef ends up in Mitzrayim. How do the brothers get their hands on Yosef in order to sell Yosef into slavery? Because Yaakov sends Yosef to go and check on the brothers while they were tending to the sheep. So again, the chain of events, I said it backwards, now I'm going to say it forwards. The chain of events is like this. Yosef goes to check on his brothers. His brothers want to kill him, but instead of killing him, they sell him into slavery. Because he's sold into slavery, he ends up in Mitzrayim. Because he ends up in Mitzrayim, he interprets Paro's dreams. He ends up becoming the viceroy of Mitzrayim. Because he ends up becoming the viceroy of Mitzrayim, he's in charge of all the food when famine grips the entire world. Because of that, Yaakov and his entire family will all end up in Mitzrayim. Because of that, the Jewish people will end up in Golus Mitzrayim for 210 years. And that's how Hashem's promise to Avram, Hashem's initial prediction to Avram, that your descendants will be subjugated and enslaved in a foreign land, that's how the whole thing comes to fruition. Again, I want to say this again, just because it's a little bit, the process here is very involved. Hashem told Avraham Avinu that the covenant between the pieces, before Yitzchak was even born, never mind Yaakov, never mind Yosef, before Yitzchak was born, Hashem said to Avraham at the famous covenant between the pieces, but the Bris Bein Absorim, Hashem said to Avraham, your descendants will be subjugated and enslaved in a foreign land. Where was this fulfilled? It was fulfilled in Mitzrayim. How did the Jews end up in Mitzrayim? The whole thing happens through Yosef. Now, what's the story? So Avraham has a son called Yitzchak. Yitzchak has a son called Yaakov. Yaakov has Yosef. Yosef goes to check on his brothers in Shechem. His brothers sell him into slavery. He ends up in Egypt. There in Egypt, he ends up, that's a whole story in itself, how he ends up interpreting Paro's dreams. But he ends up interpreting Paro's dreams. Through that, he becomes viceroy of the whole Egypt. And then when famine and hunger grip the entire world, Yosef is the only one with food. Yosef is the only one in position to have food to distribute. Because of that, the whole Jewish family, Yaakov and his sons and his grandchildren and everyone, they all go down to Mitzrayim where Yosef provides for them. But later on, Yosef dies, and the Jewish people find themselves still in Mitzrayim, and that's how they become slaves and subjugated, and that's how they're put into hard labor. And that's how Hashem's promised to Avraham Avinu in the beginning, when Hashem said, your descendants will be subjugated and enslaved in a foreign land, that's how all of this happens. Says Rashi, now let's go back to Rashi. Says Rashi, the Pasuk says, Yaakov sends Yosef to his brothers in Shechem. Where does he send him from? He sends him from Hebron. Says Rashi, the Pasuk doesn't say that he sent him from Hebron. The Pasuk says he sent him from the valley of Hebron. But Hebron's not a valley. Hebron's on top of a mountain. So what's the Torah wanting with the valley? Says Rashi, I'll tell you why. It's not the valley, it's not Hebron that's in the valley. It's the Eitzah Mukah. It's this incredibly deep counsel. It's this incredibly deep plan. It's this incredibly deep mystery that's going on here, where Yosef is being sent to his brothers through this. Hashem's promise to Avraham Avinu, Hashem's prediction to Avraham Avinu, that the children of Israel, that the Bnei Yisrael will be enslaved in a foreign land, it's going to happen through this. Me'etzah Amukah, from that incredibly deep counsel of Avraham Avinu, who's lying in Hebron, that's why Yaakov sends Yosef to the brothers to go and check on them. On a deeper level, perhaps what Rashi is saying here is that Yaakov knows exactly what he's doing. That Yaakov knows exactly what's going on. There is a plan in play here. That Yaakov knows in order for this to happen, Yosef has to end up in Mitzrayim. And in order for this to happen, Yosef needs to be sold into slavery. And he needs to be sold into slavery by his own brothers. Perhaps what Rashi's saying here is that nothing here is happening by accident. Yaakov knows exactly what's going on. Yaakov knows exactly who his sons are, and Yaakov knows exactly who Yosef is, and Yaakov knows exactly what the brothers want to do to Yosef and what they will do with him. And he sends Yosef anyways. Why? Why send Yosef possibly to his own death? Why would a father do that to his own son? Why send a son? Why would Yaakov send Yosef to the mercy of his brothers who he knows will have no mercy on him? Zokt Rashi, the Pasuk says, Vayishlacheu me'emek Chevron. The depths of Chevron are operating here. There's something going on here which is profound and deep. There's a plan behind the scenes which is in play, which goes back to Hashem and a conversation between Hashem and Avraham Avinu by the Bris Bein Absarim, where Hashem told Avraham Avinu, your descendants will be enslaved in a foreign land. What I'm trying to say is this. Yaakov understood, Rashi's saying. Yaakov understood, he had Ruach HaKodesh, he had prophecy. Yaakov understood that Yosef needs to end up in Egypt. Yosef needs to end up in some foreign land. Through him, Hashem's prophecy will be fulfilled. And so he's planting the seeds in order for this to happen. He's preparing the ground. He's putting in motion. Yaakov is putting in motion to the best way he knows how the destiny and the ultimate final promise of Hashem that Hashem already promised to Avraham Avinu so many years before. Why is this so important? I'll tell you why I think this is a game-changing insight into the whole story. You see, my friends, if this is true, which of course it is because Rashi says so, quoting from the Medrash. Based on this, perhaps we can reframe the entire rivalry between Yosef and the brothers. Maybe Yosef and his brothers weren't fighting over pettiness. Maybe they weren't fighting over silly dreams. Maybe the message between Yosef and the brothers, maybe the argument they're having here is profound and powerful and has ramifications that will last throughout Jewish history. Maybe they're arguing over the very destiny and the very soul Maybe they're arguing over the very definition of the Jewish people. Maybe the brothers, Yosef and his brothers, have different ideas of what it is that the path, the road the Jewish people need to travel as a nation. Perhaps that's what they're struggling over. I'll try to explain what I mean. You see, it was not a secret that Hashem had told Avraham Avinu that the Jewish people would be subjugated and descendants in a foreign land. It wasn't a secret. This was a prophecy that Avraham Avinu himself had heard from Hashem. He gave it over to his son Yitzchak. Yitzchak gave it over to his son Yaakov. Yaakov gave it over to his 12 children. They knew the Jewish people were in for a rough road. They knew there was tsaros. They knew there was pain and difficulty ahead. The question was how to deal with it. The question was what to do. What was the plan of the Jewish nation, of the family, to deal with the pain and the anti-Semitism and the persecution of Jewish history that Hashem told Avraham Avinu was coming? It wasn't a question of if, it was a question of when and where. So how were they planning to deal with this? What was supposed to happen? Here you had two plans, the brothers' plan and Yosef's plan. The brothers, my dear friends, were shepherds. In Hasidic teachings, it's explained that shepherds is the preferred profession of people who want to interact with the world as little as possible. You know why? Because a shepherd takes his sheep. He goes out into the forest. He goes out into the wild. He goes out into the fields while the sheep graze all day and comes back at the end of the day or at the end of the week or whatever it is. Someone's asking, based on this, why was Yaakov in mourning over the death of Yosef? Yaakov had no idea what happened with Yosef going to his brother. So, Mirza Hashem, I want to get back to that in a few minutes. So then why was Yosef in mourning when they come back later on? I'm trying to explain that also. But let's talk about the brothers for a few minutes. The brothers are shepherds. Shepherds associate with the world very little bit. Shepherds are basically people who spend their lives alone. It's a perfect job for introverts. Introverts can be shepherds all day and every day. You're with the sheep, you're with nature, you're with Hashem, you're with the world. Nobody bothers you. As long as the sheep come home and they're well fed, you make your money, you do your job, you live your life. It's a relatively peaceful living. There's no politics. The sheep all get along as a rule. There's no elections. You don't have to, there's no Republicans and Democrats. There's no shtick. It's a peaceful, hermit-like life. The brothers were all shepherds. They spend their lives taking care of sheep. Why? The brothers were of the opinion, the brothers were of the philosophy that the world that we live in is a place which is going to persecute a Jew physically and persecute a Jew spiritually. The brothers said to themselves and to each other, this world is a dangerous place. We have to separate ourselves from it as much as we possibly can. The brothers said, yes, excuse me, Hashem told Avraham Avinu that the Jewish people are going to be subjugated and enslaved in a foreign land. Let's isolate ourselves as much as possible from this world which is going to enslave us. Let's protect ourselves. Let's raise our children and our grandchildren in as sheltered an environment as possible. Let's teach our children to be shepherds. Let's teach our grandchildren to be shepherds. We'll all make a living. And we'll all be safe or as safe as possible. This way we'll be protected. The brothers believed as far as the world is concerned, as far as the outside world is concerned, the brothers believed profoundly in isolation as much as possible. Let's separate ourselves from these influences of the world. Perhaps we'll be able to protect ourselves. Perhaps we'll be safe as possible. Let's salvage what we can, as much as we can. And then, please God, we'll be okay. Yosef comes to his brothers one day and he says, Chevre, I had a dream. The dream is that I'm the king. And everything around me, everyone around me, bows down to me. The sheaves in the field, the shemesh and the yoreach, the sun and the moon, the stars, everything bows down to me. Yosef says to his brothers, you know something? I have a different idea. What if we have nothing to be afraid of? What if we have nothing to be intimidated by? What if we can go out there into the world, interact with it, and rule over it? What if we can be the king? What if we can go out there and instead of just ducking and hiding and protecting ourselves from the punches, what if we can go out there and call the shots? And what if we can tell the rest of the world what to do? And what if the rest of the world bows down to us? What if we have nothing to fear? Let's go. And the brothers looked at Yosef and said, you're a very dangerous man. And they probably said to him, you're also a little delusional. You can't win out there, the brothers said to Yosef. It's too dangerous. You can't go out there and tell the world what to do. You're a Jewish boy from the shtetl. Nobody's going to take you seriously. Besides, what do you think is going to happen to your children and your descendants? Where are you going? And Yosef has one dream and another dream, and he sees it once and twice, and he comes to his brothers and he says, I have a dream, I have a vision, I see it in my mind's eye. I can picture it. Yosef says to his brothers, have you forgotten the second half of what Hashem promised Avraham Avinu? Yes, Hashem said to Avraham Avinu that his descendants would be enslaved and subjugated for 400 years. But then when it's over, the Jews leave with great wealth. Yosef says our destiny is not to be isolated. Yosef says our destiny is not to hide in a cave somewhere and just protect ourselves, ducking from the punches, hoping we'll never be discovered in the field with sheep. No, Yosef says, we are kings, we are rulers. We'll go through whatever it is that we need to go through. When it's over, we will be wealthy. We'll be in charge. The brothers told Yosef, you're insane. Not just you're insane, you're dangerous. Where are you going? Stay in the shtetl. Stay in the shtetl mentality. Here, maybe we'll survive, maybe we won't. You go out there, you're toast. You're finished. Nothing will be left of you. Your children will marry shiksas. You'll assimilate. They'll assimilate. And there'll be nothing left of you. This was the argument between Yosef and the brothers. Look, what do you do? Who's right? Vayiru Echav, the pasuk says, the brothers saw that Yaakov loved Yosef more than any of the other brothers. Vayisneu Osai, and they despised it, and they despised him. They looked at him and they saw a man with a vision and a path that was nothing short of physically and spiritually suicidal. They tried to talk to Yaakov. They said, Yaakov, this kid has dreams. As cholam tzachem in kop. He has dreams, he has visions, he thinks he's going to take over the world. If we don't stop him, he's going to endanger us all. The brothers, the commentary explained, they saw Yosef as a roidif. They saw Yosef as somebody who was endangering their lives. How was Yosef endangering their lives? Many different explanations to it. But perhaps on a spiritual level, they saw, as Yaakov did, that if Yosef was allowed to pursue his path, if Yosef was given the rights and the green light to go and do what it is that he had envisioned, if Yosef was given permission to do this, he would be responsible for carrying the Jewish people down to Mitzrayim. The entire Jewish nation would end up in Egypt because of Yosef. And the brothers told Yosef, we will stop you. No matter what it takes. We are not going to allow you to take the Jewish people down to Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim was the capital of the world at that time, the superpower. Mitzrayim, Egypt, was the most corrupt nation of the time. The wealthiest, the most corrupt, the most immoral, the most incestuous. Erev HaSa'oretz, Mitzrayim was. The brothers swore to themselves and to each other, we will not allow Yosef to drag the Jewish people into some place, into some country, into some land. May Hashem protect us, where our future is at stake. If necessary, they were ready to kill him. They were ready to kill Yosef because they saw him as such an incredibly dangerous individual. Yosef says, I have a different plan. I believe we can succeed in the world out there physically and spiritually. The brothers said we have to hide and isolate. And so Yaakov, believing in Yosef's dreams, Yaakov believing in Yosef's dreams, Yaakov buying into Yosef's plan for the future, sends Yosef to the brothers, knowing full well that the brothers will sell Yosef into slavery. And put this plan into action, put it into motion. But you see, the brothers don't just sell Yosef. The brothers take Yosef's coat, they dip it in blood, and they come back to their father Yaakov and they say, look, here's Yosef's blood-drenched coat. What were they saying? What were they telling Yaakov? You know what they were telling Yaakov? They were telling Yaakov, Yosef tried and Yosef failed. We don't know what happened to him. We don't know what happened to Yosef. He went out there, Toraf Yosef. Yosef was torn apart. Again, not just physically, but spiritually torn apart by the forces of the world. Here's his coat. The only thing left of his Yiddishkeit, his bekeshe, his kapota, here it is, dipped in blood. Toraf Yosef. Yosef has been torn apart. And the Torah says something unbelievable. Excuse me. The Torah says, "Vayakumu kol bonov v'chol benosav lenachamai." All of Yaakov's sons and all of Yaakov's daughters. The first place that it's mentioned in the Torah that Yaakov has daughters. According to some opinions, it means his daughters-in-law. But be it as it may, they all come to comfort Yaakov. Vayakumu kol bonov v'chol benosav lenachamai. You know what happened? I'll tell you what happened. I wasn't there, but this is my assumption. They sat around Yaakov's Friday night Shabbos table, and they said to Yaakov, listen, you have a beautiful family. You have a beautiful family. Sons, daughters-in-law. Einiklach, look at this. I'm so sorry, Yaakov. You had one son called Yosef. He had some strange ideas. He had visions. He had dreams. In Hebrew, they say, there's a great Hebrew expression. In Hebrew, they say, Hayalo juk barosh. Hayalo juk barosh means he had a grasshopper in his head. He had a juk. He had a dream. He had a vision. He was obsessed with, going out and being king and whatever. It didn't work. He went, Toraf Yosef. Yosef was torn apart. The world, the forces of the world, physically and spiritually, they tore him to shreds. Nothing is left. It's okay, they told Yaakov. You still have such a beautiful family. So many sons and daughters and grandchildren. L'shem u'l'tiferes. Beautiful. So much Yiddish and nachas you have. You also had a black sheep in the family. No, it happens to the best of us. You had a black sheep, let him go. His sons and his daughters get up to comfort him. They want to tell him it's okay. It's okay, Yaakov. Don't worry. Every family has one black sheep. No, you had one too. His name was Yosef. Torah Yosef. Yosef had this dream, he had this vision, he had this idea. He was torn apart. Don't worry, they said to Yaakov. We're all still here. We're all still with you. We will be your nachas. We will be your family. And you know what the pasuk says? Vayemoen lehisnachem. Yaakov refuses to accept their comfort. Yaakov refuses to accept their message. Don't tell me my son Yosef is dead. Don't tell me my son Yosef has been torn apart. Don't tell me he was a black sheep of the family. I know Yosef's vision, says Yaakov. I know his dreams, and I believe in it. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know where he is. I mourn for him and I pine for him every day. But don't tell me to let him go, because I never will. And you know, the Medrash says something amazing. The Medrash says that Hashem placed it into the nature of a human being, into the nature of a human being's heart. That lo yaleinu rachman litzlan, when we lose a loved one, when someone we love dearly passes on, eventually with time, slowly, we begin to forget. Slowly, and it takes time. And we don't completely forget. But slowly a person can, the pain can be, a person can be distracted. A person can forget for a while about this. But that only happens when the person is actually dead. In Yaakov and Yosef's case, the truth is that Yosef was alive. The truth is that Yosef was alive. So Yaakov is living with this torment. He didn't have the internal peace that comes when a person actually loses a loved one. He didn't have the peace that comes with time. Not that there's peace, God forbid, when you lose a loved one, chas v'sholem. But he didn't have the peace that comes with time. Time gave him no relief at all. Because somewhere deep inside himself, although his sons told him Yosef was torn apart, somewhere deep inside himself, he knew Yosef wasn't dead. He refused to give up on him. Why did Yaakov refuse to give up on him? Because Yaakov sent Yosef from the valley, from the depths of Hebron. Yaakov sent Yosef from the depths of Hashem's promise that the Jews can go through 400 years being enslaved and being subservient, and they can emerge with great wealth. And Yaakov believed in it, and he knew it would happen through Yosef. But Aviv Shomer Asadover, he was just waiting to see how it would materialize. I'll tell you what I think is the conclusion of this idea. But first, I want to add one nuance to this, which I heard, which I think is a beautiful part, a beautiful addition to this verse. Somewhere across the world, somewhere across the land, Yosef is hanging on to survival by a thread. Yosef is alone, profoundly alone. Sold into slavery at the age of 17. He finds himself in Egypt, eventually, and finally he has some measure of success. His master is happy with his work, and he has a little bit of relief in his life until the mistress of the house starts up with him. And the same Parsha, our Parsha says, she grabbed a hold of him one day. She grabbed a hold of his garment. And she says, she grabbed hold of him in his garment, and she insists that Yosef be intimate with her. And the pasuk says, Yosef came home one day, and at least according to some interpretations, he had a moment of weakness. He had a moment of weakness. He was ready to give in to temptation. And at the last moment, Yosef sees the image of his father. The image of his father comes to him. He finds within himself the strength, and he leaves her. And you know which word the Torah uses to describe Yosef gathering within himself the strength to overcome this challenge of his? Yosef mustering up within himself the energy, the word the Torah uses to tell us Yosef's reaction when he sees his father in his mind's eye, the image of his father comes to him, and he finds strength in a moment of great weakness. You know which word the Torah uses? It's the same word, it's Vayemo'en. And he refused. Yosef refuses to give in to the advances of his mistress. And the word I heard, what a beautiful word I heard once said, it's the same word, Vayemo'en. Yosef refuses to give in to temptation, and Yaakov refuses to be comforted for the loss of Yosef. Why does the Torah use the same word? I'll tell you why. You know what gave Yosef the strength to overcome his test? You know what gave Yosef the ability to stand up alone, facing the death penalty? The mistress of the house told him in no uncertain terms, if you do not give in to me, I will kill you. I will flatten you, I will squash you, I will throw you into jail. And she did good on her word. She did exactly what she said she would do. She threw him into jail. Where did Yosef find within himself the strength? A lonely Hebrew slave in a foreign land, sold into slave by his own brothers. Where did he find the strength to stand up to all of this? You know where he found it? The word Vayemoin tells us where he found it. Because his father believed in him. Because his father Yaakov Vayemoin leisnachem refused to accept comfort when everybody told him Yosef is gone, Yosef is finished. Yaakov said Yosef is not gone and Yosef is not finished. Don't tell me Yosef is dead. Don't tell me what happened to Yosef. I know my son. Inside him is the soul of a leader. Vayemoin leisnachem, Yaakov says, I refuse to give up hope on this guy. Never. No matter what you bring me. Bring me his coat dipped in blood. Tell me the entire world tore him apart. Vayemoin leisnachem, Yaakov says, no. You don't know Yosef the way I know Yosef. You will survive, and he will persevere, and he will triumph. And somewhere across the world, Yosef feels deep in his soul that his father has not given up on him, that his father believes in him. V'aviv shomer asadovar. Somewhere out there's an individual, a human being, a father who loves him, who knows his dreams, who knows his aspirations, and believes in them. And Yosef says to himself, somewhere out there, my father believes in me. I'm not going to let him down. I'm not going to let myself down. And the image of his father comes to him. And he finds the strength to overcome the test. You know, my friends, the Zohar says that the image of Yaakov, the face of Yaakov comes to Yosef in the window. And somebody once told me, why in the window? Why in the window? You know what Yosef was really seeing in the window? He was really seeing himself, as is normal to see in a window. He saw a reflection of himself in the window, and as he looked at the reflection of himself, he said to himself, oh my God, look at that. I look like my father. I look like Yaakov HaTzadik. I'm a child of Yaakov HaTzadik. I'm a grandson of Yitzchak. I'm a great-grandson of Avraham. I am Yosef HaTzadik. I didn't end up here by accident. The future of the Jewish people rests on my shoulders. The promise of Hashem to Avraham Avinu that the Jews would survive this and emerge with great wealth, it's all going to happen through me. Yaakov refused to give up on Yosef, and Yosef refuses to give up on himself. What's the end of the story? The end of the story is that Yosef was right. And Yaakov was right for believing in Yosef. Yosef goes down to Mitzrayim, and rather than being torn up by Mitzrayim, rather than being torn apart by Mitzrayim, rather than being destroyed by Mitzrayim, Yosef owns Mitzrayim to the point where he owns it literally. Yosef becomes the viceroy of the superpower of the world. And in the end, all of his brothers literally bow down to him exactly as he saw in his dream. In the end, Yosef is the one who teaches us that a Jew can rule the world. In the end, Yosef is the one who teaches us that we don't need to be afraid. In the end, Yosef is the one who teaches us that in order to survive, we don't have to hide in the field with a bunch of sheep, and we don't have to act like sheep, and we don't have to be sheep. In the end, Yosef is the one who teaches us that the whole world will bow down to us at our feet if we only remember who we are. And if we only remember that we are the true rulers of the world. In the end, Yosef was the one who taught us that we have nothing to fear when Hashem says you'll be subjugated and enslaved in a foreign land for 400 years, because that doesn't define us. The 400 years, the slavery will end. And when it does, the Jewish people will emerge birchush gadol, with great wealth. In the end, Yosef is the one who teaches us that the inner strength of a Yid can overcome and rule and control the whole world. The sun, moon, and stars and everything in between will all bow down to us. And in the end, Yosef is the one who teaches us that sometimes even your own brothers don't understand what you're saying. They don't see it in you. They don't see that it's possible. And that's not a reason to hold a grudge against them or be upset with them. You can't expect of people more than they're capable. Yosef at no point is angry with his brothers. He understands them. To Yosef's brothers, Yosef was a dangerous man. He was exposing them in so many ways. Yosef says, you should have trusted me. But Yosef isn't angry with them. Yosef isn't angry with anybody. Yosef is a very emotional man. The Torah talks about Yosef. The Torah says Yosef cried 7 times. In 7 different places, the Torah talks about Yosef crying. But it doesn't say once that he was angry. He wasn't angry. He wasn't a victim. Yosef didn't blame his brothers or hold resentment. Yosef didn't go through life saying, poor me, I'm an orphan, sold into slavery by my brothers. Yosef was a leader. Yosef was a man who woke up every day and said, Hashem has put me here, wherever it is that I am, with a plan, with a mission. Yosef said, if I do what it is that Hashem wants me to do, I will rule the world. Not because I am great, not because of me, because this is what Hashem wants. And this is what Yosef does, and this is what he does successfully. And even his own father, Yaakov, bows down to him in the end. Even his own father Yaakov bows down to him in the end. In the end, everybody comes to see that Yosef represents, Yosef embodied, at least at that stage of history, what it meant to be a Jew, a Jewish leader, to have this Yiddish neshama, to have that type of bravery and courage, and to fulfill Hashem's mission in this world. The brothers didn't know what to do with him. They saw him as dangerous. They saw him as physically dangerous. They saw him as spiritually dangerous. They said to themselves, at least if we sell him into slavery, at least perhaps he'll be a slave somewhere. We don't have to actually kill him, but we can get rid of him. Hopefully we'll never see him again. We'll tell Yaakov to continue without him. The family pictures will look so beautiful without the black sheep. And Yaakov said, oh no, this black sheep is going to be the one to save us all. I want to conclude with a quick anecdote that I heard. I heard a young student before the Second World War went to his Rosh Yeshiva. And he said, Rebbe, I don't know what it is, but Hashem has blessed me with a gift in Geneva, in thievery. I'm a master thief. I can pickpocket people, can pickpocket from people in a way that they'll never know. He said, I can do it to you right now, Rebbe. Here's your wallet. He said to his Rosh Yeshiva, why would Hashem give me such a natural gift at stealing? Why would Hashem do that? Nowadays, if somebody came to Rosh Yeshiva with that and said, Rebbe, I'm an expert thief, what would we do? You take this bocher and you throw him out of every yeshiva in the world. Throw him out of every shul. Throw him out of every... Are you kidding me? Agadef! Arois! Out! But his Rosh Yeshiva, according to this legend, had real wisdom, and his Rosh Yeshiva said to him, I don't know why Hashem gave you this gift, but I promise you there's a reason. Hold on to it. Sure enough, a couple of years later, the war broke out. And this young man found himself together with God knows how many Jews, thousands, tens of thousands, in the ghetto and eventually in the concentration camps. And his gift at stealing sustained and saved the lives of countless Jews. Sometimes the Jew we perceive as the black sheep, sometimes the Jew we perceive as the ganef, as the individual who sometimes the Jew we don't understand, sometimes the Jew we can't make heads or tails out of, is the one who has been blessed by Hashem to hold the leadership qualities to take us into an era that the rest of us are unfamiliar with. It means we have to learn to find the greatness in ourselves and in others in education, to find the gift and the greatness in our students. When somebody comes and says, I have a dream, not write them off as a meshuggah. If you have a dream, if you have a vision, it's Hashem's way of telling you, maybe Hashem's way of telling you you're destined for greatness. Hold on to it. Pursue it in a healthy way. Please God, sooner or later, all of our dreams will be fulfilled. And we will be reunited with all of our loved ones and all those we miss. Please God, this year Hanukkah should be a year of true light and true redemption for all Jews. Please God, tonight we'll have the zechus, the merit, to light the Beis Hamikdash, to light them, to watch the lighting of the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash. There's two Mashiachs, Jews say. You know about this, right? There's two Mashiachs. One is the regular Mashiach, Mashiach ben David, and the other one is Mashiach ben Yosef. Yosef himself also produced. That means part of the process of bringing Mashiach is to have one of Yosef's descendants. Have a wonderful Shabbos and a wonderful Chanukah.